Very good. We have a viewer from Todd County that has a question that we dealt with at some length last year, and that's this issue of chronic waste in deer, chronic waste disease. This viewer points out that there was a bill that was making its way through the Senate, ultimately was killed, and this viewer wants to know what the status is or what the likelihood of dealing with the spread of chronic waste disease, and will there be action in the Senate and House this year on that issue. Senator Putnam, we'll start with you and then go to Senator Rasmusson.
Sure. Thank you. That's a really important question. When I was first named chair of the Agriculture Committee, because I'm a nerd, I went back and I watched a whole bunch of YouTube videos of committees for the past couple of years. And I was amazed by the intensity of feeling around the CWD issue. I'm assuming that the viewer is referencing the bill that was to limit the spread and growth of deer farms. There was a bill and there was bipartisan agreement on that bill. And at the last minute, there was a caucus that then undid that agreement and the bill died. For my part, as I learn more about CWD and our responses to it, we have one kind of governmental issue, which is the issue of jurisdiction between the Board of Animal Health and the DNR. Whose responsibility is it? It's farming, but it's also natural wildlife. That's a little bit complicated. But there are also concerns about detecting and isolating populations of deer who have CWD because there is no test for it. You can only test for it on a corpse. So it's a really complicated issue. I'll be holding hearings about it this session. But I do want the viewer to understand that I realize the intensity of feeling on every side of this issue. It's a difficult one. It's about livelihoods and lifestyles at the same time. And I think whenever we deal with something that important, we got to take our time and be balanced and thoughtful about it. So I guess that would be my basic take on it. We will be talking about it this session. So I hope that the viewer dials in a couple times and watches us in committee when we do.
Senator Rasmusson?
The tradition of deer hunting is important to my family, and I know it's important to a lot of Minnesota families. And I think we need to make sure that we're protecting our deer population across the state from CWD. In addition to the hearings that Senator Putnam is planning to hold, I also think we need to look at research avenues through the University of Minnesota and others who are willing to do research on how we can better detect and eliminate or mitigate the threat of CWD in Minnesota's deer population. And then we also, I think it's really important that there's a handful of bad actors in the industry that have really had a unfortunate impact. And I think it's important for us to make sure that we're targeting the bad actors and not the people who are responsible in an industry. And that just doesn't apply to the CWD issues in deer farming, but I think you could take that approach to the regulation of lots of different industries.
We have a viewer, just finishing up the CWD discussion. I guess I would ask both of you, do you predict that there will be a CWD chronic waste disease bill that passes the Senate this year? Senator Putnam, what do you think?
I haven't heard any specific rumblings in that regard, and I should be the one who hears those rumblings, but I haven't heard much about them. Right now, people are a lot more focused on bird flu, avian influenza. There's an outbreak in our turkey population, so we're talking about that a lot more than we are about the cervidae problem. And there's also a potential for swine flu too. So there are other issues that impact our livestock and our the health of our animals that are currently kind of taking up a little bit more of our air, but that doesn't mean that we won't deal with CWD at some point this session.
Senator Rasmusson, what do you think?
I think there's going to be bills introduced that deal with CWD, and it just comes down to what type of approach are we taking, what tools are we attempting to bring to the problem that CWD has for Minnesota's deer population. And for me, I think the priority should be on research, making sure we understand the science of CWD as best as possible, and that we're focusing in on the bad actors who are creating issues and not trying to overregulate those who are acting responsibly.